Good morning. Welcome to Zen Glob, the podcast talking about meditation. Today, I'm thinking about time management, the quality of different types of time. And I'm prompted in this thinking by the work that I do for my job. Right? My job is not podcasting. In fact, those of you who are watching on video will observe that it is much brighter than usual because it is actually much later in the day than usual. I got caught up in some work first thing in the morning, and so didn't have the time that I normally would to do my podcasting, because I usually have my meditation practice, and before that my animal care, dogs, cats, breakfast, making coffee, and do a little bit of stretching, and then meditation, and then on Tuesdays and Thursdays I turn to podcasting. Still quite early in the morning, and then I am ready to start work around 6 or 6:30 in the morning. Particularly now that I'm working from home, or have been working from home, the day starts pretty early, although I would usually leave at about 6 anyway, and I have a quick commute, so I'd be in the office by 7. So I was thinking about the 10 hours or so that make up my work day and how that time can be used, how I like to think of it. And then broadly, how do those thoughts extend into the rest of the day? But today I'm going to focus really on those 10 hours of the work day, assuming that I do sleep for 6 or so hours, and then the rest of the time just kind of goes, doesn't it? So at work, this is meaningful to me because I am a Buddhist, but also because I'm a program manager at work. And because I'm a Buddhist, the nature of time and the passing of time and the experience of time and the experience of the moment is meaningful. We are looking to observe the moment without manipulation, without modification, to see what is really there. The time, in some ways, is the subject of meditation, or it is the medium upon which the subject of the meditation abides as things arise, abide, and then decline, depart. We observe that in the nature of time, in the phenomenon of time. We observe our life as the progression of moments in time. The nature of time is kind of bound up into the nature of the moment and the nature of our experience of meditation. Within that realization, then there are also behaviors and characteristics of compassion and skillful means, and those kinds of the ability to bring right thought, right speech, right action stems directly from an awareness of the moment and the being of the moment. So then, how do I bring that into a corporate environment? I work at a large company, in a very I'm going to use the word cliched, but very, as you would expect if someone were to say that you work in a large corporate office. The way that my time is managed through the day is really the most important skill that I have. And in different phases of my career, I've had different requirements. There was a phase where I was traveling a lot, and I would arrive at the office in New York, and then for the next 3 days, the success of my work was in my ability to be able to focus for 15 minutes at a time on whatever was in front of me, because I was meeting with a lot of different people. I was moving from one zone of interest to another. And although it wasn't always just in 15-minute increments, it really was a question uh, of single-threaded focus in very small increments. And I grew quite adept at that if I had 30 minutes or 15 minutes to meet with someone, or they were trying to pass along something to me, the ability to cut to the quick of the subject was absolutely essential, and to focus on that subject and come up with an answer without getting wrapped up in a lot of other things. Is that meditative? Is that Zen? Not really, right? But it's a skill set that perhaps is similar to concentration. It's not letting it be, but it is trying to figure out what's directly in front of me in very, very quick amount of time. But that's not what I want to talk about today either. What I want to talk about, this pyramid of time that I was thinking about, because I was thinking yesterday. I was out with my dog walking, and I was thinking about how I like to use the time in my workday as opposed to how it actually gets used. And I came up with this pyramid structure of time, the uses of the time, and again, it's not 100% accurate, and it's illustrative rather than prescriptive. But let's say that I have 10 hours in the workday. 5 of those hours on a given day will be spent in absolutely reactive to things that I was not expecting to deal with, and that I don't really know anything about, and that I'm just trying to bat away and deal with. Unexpected phone calls, emails, requests for information, questions about what we're doing, why we're doing. But the key element is that they are unanticipated questions. And if that's 5 hours, then maybe the pyramid above it, the level above it, is 3 hours, where I try to get ahead of those questions with scheduled meetings, or I know that we're going to need to think about something, so let's get together and think about it and figure out, so that this time next week we're not getting bombarded with a barrage of questions about how to do something, or what it should be, or how much is it going to cost, or who's going to do it, or any of the kinds of things that are just trivial questions that we do get hit with all the time. But if we can spend 3 hours a day saying, all right, today we're going to talk about this particular component with this particular group, because we know that there's some questions about implementation, and I'm going to sit and spend some time with you, and we'll figure that out. And I know that we're going to have that meeting on Wednesday afternoon, and today it's the day that we're going to have that meeting. There's a prepared agenda. It's still reactive, but there's an agenda that we've had time to think through and say, we're going to talk about these questions, react to them, and get a question. So it's a more mature reaction. It's not simply, holy shit, it's 7 o'clock in the morning, and look at these emails. I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. I need to get on top of this. This is more, let's get together for an hour and think about this. And if we can figure that out at that level, then our week is going to go more smoothly. So there is a timeline associated with each of these levels. There's 2 more levels on top of where I'm talking about. There's the immediate, sort of minute by minute, 5 hours a day of just garbage. Then the 3 hours a day is on maybe the weekly up to monthly time frame. If those meetings are well established and our thinking is clear, we should be able to get ahead of the next month's worth of garbage, right? So the cycle is at the week to month level rather than the minute to day level. But in order for those 3 hours to be effective, I really need 2 hours. Got that wrong. I need 1 hour and 57 minutes where I can sit and really just step back and work on the program rather than within the program. Like, what's the information that we need to make decisions that's going to frame the work for the next 3 months or 6 months? If I can get an hour and 57 minutes a day to think like that, then each of those monthly meetings or cycles become very smooth. And then the amount of chaos on a day-by-day basis really reduces, because for 1 hour and 57 minutes every day, I'm sitting and thinking 6 to 9 months ahead in the future. And then that trickles into those agendas to say, all right, we know that we're going to try and do something 6 months from now. Let's bring in what do we need to do now to make that runway smooth. And if we do that, then our unexpected minute-by-minute stuff should also settle down calmly. This, of course, is an entirely idealized model of how I would like my day to go. There are, of course, days where I have some hours where I can sit and think and draw things out. And I do mean draw them out. I love to use a whiteboard. I love to use the whiteboard software within the collaborative tools that we use. Blocks and arrows and words is really how I think about the work that we're doing. So that's 9 hours and 57 minutes if I did my math right. Right, 5 hours and 3 hours, then 2 hours. Yep. So what are those remaining 3 minutes? Well, that is the gift of grace. And there's no way to schedule that. But I do really feel like there are moments of insight that determine the unfolding of a large program. And I say 3 minutes a day. Of course, it's really more like 3 minutes every 3 months. Or 3 minutes once a year, where just something makes sense in terms of the problem that needs to be solved, that needs to be really articulated. And if we can articulate that problem, then the pyramid of time on a daily basis extends out to a mountain range of time over the next 3 years. But those moments need to be defended, and when they occur, the insight needs to be recognized, captured, and then cultivated. It's like a seed or an initial kernel. And they're very, very rare, but for me. But I feel like that's the connection point between a lot of the meditation practice and the sort of the corporate program management. You need that clarity of objective to kind of pull along everything else. And that clarity of objective comes with the openness to thinking like that. So again, it's not that I schedule 3 minutes a day to think. It's a sort of a directional idea, or representative of the proportion of time. But it's an inverse relationship between the time and the value, because all that other stuff only makes sense if that clear initial moment is true. And I feel very strongly that the workforce, the workplace, has the potential for exhibiting enlightenment just as much as working and living in a monastery, or indeed as a lay practitioner like myself. The monastic life is wonderful to be able to devote those 10 hours a day to prayer, but I'm trying to build it up where I've got 2 hours a day that devoted to prayer and meditation. I'm not there yet. I stumble because that's a lot of time and I'm tired. But if I can think of it as the distillation or rather the precipitation of effort based on that single point, whether it's the work in my corporate program or whether it's the work in my stabilization, the insight swooping down, like they talk about in Dzogchen. So anyway, let me know what you think. Certainly, if you've heard this far, you should subscribe to the podcast or to the YouTube channel. And if you have any questions, drop me a note, zenglop@gmail.com, and I will catch you all in a couple of days. And good morning. Welcome to Zenglop, the podcast, music and meditation. Today, we're going to talk more about Socrates, specifically Socratic aporia, and maybe with a cross-slice, a section, a cross-section of quantum physics, or at least some of the questions that arise in quantum physics. So what does that mean? How am I going to pull that together? Sounds a bit suspect, doesn't it? Socratic quantum aporia. Well, so here's what I'm thinking. I am reading right now one of those books about quantum physics that's written for the general audience, right? Someone like me who doesn't have any real background in physics or mathematics, but has a general interest. So this particular book is called The Hidden Reality by Brian Greene. I think it's maybe 10 years old now. So it could be that a lot of the material is already out of date, but he is describing maybe 10 different ideas about the multiverse. In this particular book, he's exploring different theoretical frameworks that all lead to some form of a multiverse model, where the universe that we consider the universe, is actually one of many multiverses. And so each of these theoretical frameworks suggests something within them that leads to that. And one of the first is based on the quantum probability, quantum uncertainty. So I haven't finished the book yet. I'm sure I'm going to make some mistakes here. And for those of you who are experts in the subject of physics, please do feel free to correct me, roughly and abrasively if you choose, but gently and compassionately if you are able. So, all right, let's think of it this way, right? One of the frameworks of modern physics is quantum uncertainty. That at the quantum level, the material, the fabric of reality is uncertain. It is derived not from fixed behavior, but from probability. And that the collapsing of that probability wave is influenced somehow by the observation, and that with the act of observation, one of the many possible states of the atom, the subatomic particles, and then the grosser reality that is made up of those atoms and particles, we observe, we abide in, we reside in one of those possible combinations. But why that one and not any of the many others? And what happens to those many others? And one thought experiment is that they also manifest in a different dimension or different universe, where from the smallest subatomic particle up through to the broadest structures of the universe, every possible combination of those events does occur. They just occur in different dimensions or different universes within this infinite number of multiverses. But we don't know, right? And we don't know why the one set of observations and probability results, we don't know why we're in this one and not a different one. Or maybe we are in the other one, and some of our experiences and phenomena are actually the result of an alternate Andrew having a similar but slightly different experience. And maybe there's a relationship that is unmeasurable today, but that still impacts us. That maybe now I'm not saying anything that Brian Greene, who is a reputable, thoughtful physicist, he would never say anything like this. But what if there's some quantum relationship between similar forms in these parallel multiverses? And perhaps the further away from the similar event that you get, the less that connection can be committed or established, perhaps. So, for example, I am here. I have a cup of coffee. This morning, I brewed using a different type of bean. I usually use the Whole Foods Italian roast. It's a very basic roast, but for daily pot of coffee made in my drip coffee, it's just absolutely perfect. There's no questions about it. It's not the greatest cup of coffee in the world, but it has never let me down. Today, I have a sample of mushroom coffee from the Four Sigmatic folk, and I do use their mushroom supplement. I quite often add it to that Whole Foods coffee. But today, we had a sample pack of the actual ground mushroom coffee where that lion's mane extract and possibly some other mushroom additives are already in there. So I made it, and I'm drinking it. But maybe in the 1-over multiverse, Andrew decided, Andrew.1.2, if I'm Andrew Prime, let's say that Andrew.1, decided to ignore that today. And so is drinking the same Whole Foods blend with the same proportion in the same mug that we always drink. That's a very minor discrepancy at the gross level. I can only imagine at the quantum level the complexity of variation. And I do remember when I read The Tao of Physics a long time ago. It's on my list of books to reread. One of the criticisms that was leveled at that book by other physicists was that you simply cannot apply the rules and thinking about quantum level at the gross material level. Which, of course, makes sense, right? We don't live in a universe where I can close my eyes, open them, look somewhere else, and then a different probability field is unfolded. The weight of matter, the metaphysical weight of matter, starts to suggest other rules. At least that was my understanding of the criticism that was leveled at the Tao of Physics. So there's this attitude of why this set of quantum observations and not some other, and we will never know. And this is, now I'm getting back to the physics of it. We simply won't know why this and not that. Why something and not something else. The bigger question about why something rather than nothing isn't exclusive to the question about multiverse, right? That's a much bigger, more interesting, not more interesting, but it's a more difficult question in some ways. Like, if we've got the a priori assumption that there are quantum particles that behave probabilistically, and that from that pattern of probable outcomes and observations we arrive at one set, that's fine. But why do we have that problem in the first place? We need to think about why there's even a question to be asked in the first place. And I don't think that that's part of our common, comfortable thought process. And so this is why Socrates was executed. That's a leap. That's a hell of a leap, but bear with me. Socrates was executed for all kinds of political reasons, but one of the reasons is that everyone thought he was a fucking asshole. And one of the reasons they thought he was a fucking asshole was that whenever anyone talked to him, friend or foe, they would walk away not even knowing what the word is, to reference Heidegger and Bill Clinton. They would walk away with this. The word is aporia. This notion that we don't even know what we were saying at the start. We cannot even frame a meaningful question. It is a word designed to explain and describe the sensation that occurs at the end of a Socratic dialogue, where you may start by saying, I will live a just life. Or, and this is one of the common starting points for the Socratic dialogues, of course I can tell you what a just life is. Not only do I want to live one, but I can teach you how to do it as well. Can it be taught? What is it? What is it in its unique definition? Not as a circular reference to other behavior that we can also challenge the definition of. Is a just life a life that is one where we follow the laws of the city, or where we accumulate wealth and comfort, where we follow virtue? Well, there you go, right there. Once you've said virtue, Socrates is going to be all over you and say, virtue, yes. What is virtue? Is it the ability to fight well in armor and not flee from an enemy? Is it the ability to run a state wisely? Is it the ability to educate the youth in gymnastics? What is virtue? That we will seek to follow it, and that the pursuit of virtue leads to a just life. All of these questions about what is this invariably lead to a contradictory statement when you were talking to Socrates. Hence why everyone thought he was a fucking asshole. But he wasn't just playing mind games, and he wasn't just being an asshole. He was pointing out that language assumes a field of reference that is entirely made up. It is necessary in order for us to engage in acts of human civilization. And we know more now than Socrates did about language, or at least we think we do. We have a body of knowledge and study around semantics and around grammar, some of which had yet to be written down or defined. Aristotle later did much of that. We think we have a genetic understanding of language. We think there's a language gene. We think we know about the role of language in the course of the last 25,000 years of human history. So we think we know a lot more than Socrates did in terms of our scientific ability to define what language is. But when Socrates is challenging his partners in dialogue to explain what they mean by justice or virtue, these concepts that appear self-evident, particularly to a 5th century Athenian who would have defined not just himself as a person, and it is always himself, and in that flawed and narrowly defined democracy. He would have defined himself and the city and probably civilization using words like justice and virtue. But then when Socrates shows up and says, well, what is that word justice? What is the just life? Excellent, you can tell me what the just life is so that I may go away from here and pursue it. Another of Socrates' dialogue gambits is to position himself as the student. I know nothing. Tell me then. If you can tell me what justice is wonderful, I will change my life and follow you. I will do exactly what you say. And then invariably you end up in these circles. If you're lucky, you end up in a circle where you simply have to admit that you contradicted yourself. It is equally likely that you will end up staring at the words you have been using and realizing that you don't even know what they mean. and because of that, you don't even know what meaning means. It's a phenomenological exposure to uncertainty, and it is an absolutely necessary precondition to consider any of the things that we talk about in this podcast, whether it's meditation or art, music, spirit. This idea that we should approach everything with absolute bafflement as our precondition, with the expectation that no matter what clarification we seek, what information we acquire, or what wonders and realizations we may come across, that initial state of not knowing, that initial state of bafflement is as true for the Socratic dialogues as it is for the physicists of the 21st century. And how wonderful is that? So let us cultivate that feeling and go on from there. So, all right, I think that's it for today. If you have any questions, drop me a note, zenglop@gmail.com. Leave a comment below, subscribe, etc., etc. Keep your wits about you.